You're a Persian infantryman, standing in the front rank of the Sassanid Empire's army on a sun-scorched plain near the Euphrates River in May 633 AD. The heat is already brutal, the kind that makes your mail armor feel like it's cooking your skin underneath, the kind that turns metal fittings hot enough to burn if you touch them with bare hands. But you're not thinking about the heat right now. You're thinking about how easy this is going to be. Around you stand 30,000 Persian soldiers, the professional military force of an empire that has ruled Mesopotamia for over 4 centuries, that has fought the Romans and Byzantines as equals, that has crushed rebellions and conquered kingdoms. Heavy infantry locked shield to shield, armored cavalry on the finest horses imperial wealth can buy, archers ready to darken the sky. You are imperial certainty made flesh. Across the plain, barely 15,000 Arab tribesmen have made the catastrophic mistake of standing to face you in open battle. No walls, no fortifications, no reinforcements visible, no logical escape route. They've chosen to fight here, on ground that favors your formations, against odds that guarantee their destruction. Your commanders are pleased. This won't be a battle, it will be an execution. A professional demonstration of how imperial armies deal with desert raiders who don't understand their place. You've heard the stories about these Arabs. Of course. They've won some skirmishes in the borderlands, raided some outlying garrisons, gotten lucky against surprised forces. But this is different. This is the full weight of Persian military doctrine, the system that has dominated warfare in this region for centuries, assembled and deployed against them. They will break. They always break when faced with real power. The order comes down the line: advance. The entire Persian army begins moving forward in disciplined blocks. Shields locked. Steps synchronized. The ground trembles slightly beneath thousands of boots striking in coordinated rhythm. It's beautiful in its precision, the kind of tactical choreography that only centuries of military tradition can produce. The Arabs meet you head-on. Steel clashes against steel. Shields collide. Men grunt and shove and strike. And then something unexpected happens. The Arab line starts giving ground. Not collapsing, not running in panic, but stepping backward. One step, then another. Fighting the whole time, maintaining formation, but definitely retreating. A smile spreads across your face, despite the exertion. They're breaking. It's happening exactly as doctrine promised. You push harder. Your shield presses forward. Your sword finds gaps. Around you, your fellow soldiers press the advantage. The Persian line surges with confidence. This is what victory feels like: steady, relentless, inevitable. What you don't know, what you cannot possibly see from your position in the front rank, is that every step forward you take is walking you deeper into a trap so perfectly engineered that by the time you realize what's happening, escape will already be impossible. Before we dive into one of the most brilliant tactical deceptions in military history, smash that like button and subscribe to Maproom Battles for the battles that actually decided empires. Comment, where are you watching from right now within the next 6 hours? This Persian army of 30,000 professional soldiers will be annihilated. Not defeated in the conventional sense, where armies retreat to fight another day. annihilated, erased as a functioning military force, shattered so completely that the psychological damage will spread through every subsequent Persian army for the rest of the war. By one commander, by one decision, by one ruthless strategic principle executed with surgical precision. This is the Battle of Walaja, May 633 AD. The moment the Sassanid Persian Empire began to die, and the story of how Khalid ibn al-Walid, the Sword of Allah, the undefeated commander, the man who would never lose a battle in his entire military career, crushed one of the most powerful empires on earth, using a tactic so controlled, so patient, that the Persians walked willingly into their own destruction. Let's go back to understand how we arrived at this moment. In 633 AD, the Sassanid Persian Empire was one of the two great superpowers of the known world. For more than 4 centuries, it had ruled Mesopotamia, modern Iraq, and vast territories beyond. It had fought Rome and later Byzantium as an equal, trading victories and defeats in wars that reshaped the ancient world. Its capital at Ctesiphon was one of the wealthiest cities on earth. Its armies were professional, hierarchical, rigorously trained. Persian warfare was built on certainty. Certainty in superior armor, certainty in disciplined formations, certainty in tactical doctrine refined through generations of imperial warfare. At the heart of Persian military power stood their heavy infantry soldiers encased in mail and lamellar armor, carrying long spears and shields, trained to lock together in formations that functioned like mobile fortresses. Behind them rode the Savaron, the elite noble cavalry horsemen trained from childhood in the aristocratic military tradition, armed with lances and composite bows, mounted on the finest horses that imperial breeding programs and enormous wealth could produce. These weren't raiders or skirmishers. They were shock troops designed to smash through enemy formations and pursue broken enemies to complete destruction. The Persian military system didn't improvise. It didn't adapt in the moment. It executed doctrine that had been proven effective across centuries. They advanced in coordinated formations. They crushed resistance through superior weight and armor. They destroyed broken enemies through disciplined pursuit. It was a machine. And machines don't question whether they're going to work, they just work. So when reports reached Ctesiphon that Arab armies had crossed from the Arabian Peninsula into Mesopotamia, Persian commanders didn't panic. They were offended, insulted. To them, this wasn't an invasion by a legitimate military power. This was a nuisance. Desert tribesmen, warriors who fought on camels and horses without proper armor, who lived in tents instead of cities, who had no imperial pedigree or centuries of military tradition, had no right standing on Persian soil, let alone claiming they could conquer it. So the Sassanid Empire did what empires do. They gathered a professional army and marched to destroy the impudent raiders who didn't understand their place in the world order. Approximately 30,000 soldiers, a force representing significant imperial commitment, assembled and moved to confront the Arab incursion. The commanders were confident. Why wouldn't they be? They had numbers, armor, training, logistics, cavalry, a proven tactical system. Everything doctrine said was necessary for victory. Across the plain waiting for them was Khalid ibn al-Walid. Let's understand who this man was, because his biography explains everything about what's about to happen. Khalid had been born into the Quraysh tribe of Mecca, the same tribe the Prophet Muhammad belonged to. But for the first part of his adult life, Khalid had been Muhammad's enemy. He had fought against the early Muslims at the Battle of Uhud in 625 AD, where his cavalry charge had turned near certain Muslim victory into devastating defeat. He had been, by all accounts, a tactical genius, even then recognized by both sides as one of the most dangerous cavalry commanders in Arabia. Then, in 629 AD, Khalid converted to Islam. The reasons were complex: political, spiritual, strategic. But what mattered militarily was that the Muslims had just gained a commander whose brilliance was already proven and whose loyalty would be absolute. Muhammad reportedly gave him the title Saif Allah, the Sword of Allah, recognizing both his skill and his new role. By 633 AD, Khalid had fought in multiple campaigns. He had led forces in the Ridda Wars, the campaigns to reunify the Arabian Peninsula after Muhammad's death, when various tribes attempted to break away from the Islamic State. He had demonstrated repeatedly that he understood something most commanders never grasp. War is not about matching strength against strength. It's about forcing your enemy to make the moves you want them to make, and then punishing those moves with overwhelming violence at the moment they're most vulnerable. Khalid looked at warfare the way a chess master looks at a board, not seeing pieces, but seeing sequences of moves and counter-moves. Seeing how your opponent's doctrine limits their options. Seeing how you can create situations where all their available choices lead to disaster. The Persian commanders marching toward him saw an Arab tribal force that needed to be crushed. Khalid saw a machine whose operating manual he had already read, whose predictable responses he could exploit, whose certainty he could weaponize against them. He chose the battlefield near Walaja deliberately. Let's understand the terrain, because geography is half the strategy. The plain near Walaja stretched wide and relatively open. The center was flat ground, perfect for the kind of large-scale infantry and cavalry maneuvers that Persian doctrine favored. But running along both flanks were low ridges, not mountains, not cliffs, just elevated terrain features that rose gently from the plain. To a Persian commander scanning the battlefield, those ridges looked like scenery, terrain features that defined the edges of the combat area, but didn't significantly affect tactics. The center was where the battle would be decided: flat, open, ideal for deploying heavy formations. Khalid saw something completely different. Those low ridges weren't scenery. They were curtains. And behind curtains, you can hide things. Khalid took his most dangerous asset, his cavalry, perhaps 2,000 to 3,000 mounted warriors, and divided them into two forces. He positioned them behind the ridges on both flanks, completely hidden from view of anyone standing in the center of the plain. From the Persian position, these cavalry forces were invisible. They might as well not exist. Then he gave them the hardest order cavalry can receive: stay hidden. Don't move. Don't reveal yourselves. Wait. This wasn't improvisation or battlefield opportunism. This was engineered deception. Khalid had designed a killing ground and invited the Persians to walk into its center. The Persian commander's sources don't preserve his name, which tells you how the battle ended. Formed his army exactly as doctrine demanded. Heavy infantry in the center, arranged in deep, disciplined blocks. Cavalry deployed on both wings, ready to exploit breakthroughs or protect the flanks. archers positioned to weaken the enemy before the infantry closed. The plan was simple and had worked for centuries. Advance steadily. Fix the Arab center in place with superior weight and armor. Break it through sustained pressure. Roll the flanks inward. Pursue and destroy the fleeing remnants. Arab armies had already shown themselves dangerous in border skirmishes and raids, but only when they were allowed freedom of movement, the ability to strike, withdraw, strike again from unexpected angles. The Persians intended to deny them that freedom by pinning Khalid's force in place, crushing the center, and destroying the army before it could maneuver. Everything about the battlefield told the Persian commanders this plan would work. They had 30,000 men against perhaps 15,000. They had superior armor. They had proven tactical doctrine. The ground favored conventional warfare. As the two armies faced each other beneath the rising sun of a Mesopotamian May, morning heat already building toward the brutal midday temperatures that turn armor into ovens, everything visible confirmed Persian expectations. This was going to be a textbook victory. The battle began without chaos or surprise. The Persian heavy infantry advanced in disciplined blocks exactly as they'd been trained. Shields locked, spears leveled, steps synchronized. It was intimidating by design, the sight of thousands of armored men moving forward in perfect coordination, an iron wall advancing to crush everything in its path. The Arab lines met them head-on. Steel struck steel with a distinctive ringing clang that dominates ancient battlefields. Shields collided with dull, heavy impacts. Men grunted with exertion, shouted battle cries, screamed when blades found flesh. The front ranks locked together in the grinding, shoving, stabbing melee that characterized infantry combat in this era. And then something unexpected happened that the Persians interpreted as confirmation of their superiority. Khalid's center began to give ground. Not in a panicked collapse where formations shatter and men run. This was controlled, coordinated withdrawal. The Arab warriors stepped backward one pace, then another while continuing to fight. Shield walls maintained cohesion. Units stayed in contact with each other. Officers remained in position. But they were definitely, visibly retreating. To the Persian commander watching from his command position behind the main line, this confirmed absolutely everything he believed about how this battle would unfold. The Arabs were breaking under pressure. Their line couldn't withstand the weight of imperial heavy infantry. Victory was proceeding exactly according to doctrine. He increased the pressure. More infantry units pushed forward into the center. The Persian line surged with growing confidence. Soldiers who had been cautious during the initial contact now fought with the certainty of men who know they're winning. Every step forward felt like progress carved in stone. What the Persian commander didn't realize, what he couldn't see from his position, what Khalid was deliberately hiding from him, was that every step forward was drawing his army deeper into ground that Khalid had already measured, calculated, and designated as the killing zone. This wasn't retreat. This was invitation. Khalid ibn al-Walid rode behind his own lines, not fighting personally at this stage, watching. He didn't respond emotionally to seeing his men give ground. He didn't rush reserve units forward to shore up the line. He didn't issue desperate orders to stand fast at all costs. He was watching geometry unfold, watching the Persian formation stretch, watching gaps open, watching the machine operate exactly as its programming dictated. He allowed the Persians to believe they were forcing this battle to proceed on their terms. And the Persians absolutely believed it. They had no reason not to. They pressed harder, fed more units into the center, thickened the assault. Their infantry surged forward with increasing momentum, convinced that the Arab line was on the verge of complete collapse. With every passing minute, the Persian formation grew longer as the center pushed forward faster than the flanks could keep pace. It grew thinner as units spread out to maintain contact across the widening front, and it grew more confident because nothing in their experience suggested this was anything other than standard tactical success. This was the moment Khalid was waiting for. But he would not strike yet. Not until the trap was completely set. Not until retreat would be psychologically impossible for the Persians, even if it remained physically possible. Not until their commitment was total and irreversible. The Persian commander, watching from behind his advancing infantry, saw exactly what he expected to see: an Arab line bending under pressure, ground being taken steadily, the enemy being pushed exactly where doctrine said they should break. This was how imperial wars were supposed to end. Apply pressure. Fix the enemy in place. Destroy their cohesion. Pursue and annihilate. So he committed even more men. Additional infantry blocks were fed into the center, thickening the push, adding weight to the advance. Persian shields locked tighter together. The advance became heavier, denser, more relentless. Each step forward felt like inevitable progress. What he didn't notice, what his doctrine didn't train him to look for, was the cost of this success. The Persian line was no longer compact. The center had surged so far forward that the wings struggled to maintain alignment. Gaps formed between infantry blocks as some units advanced faster than others. The beautiful parade ground precision of the initial deployment was degrading into something looser, more chaotic. Orders took longer to travel from the command position to forward units. Horn signals and shouted commands blurred together in the heat, dust, and noise of combat. And still Khalid ibn al-Walid continued giving ground, step by deliberate step. To the Persians, this looked like exhaustion, an Arab force fighting bravely, but inevitably being ground down by superior imperial power. To Khalid, it was geometry and psychology. He was measuring everything. Here's what most people miss when they read about this battle in summary form. Khalid wasn't reacting to the Persian advance. He was directing it. Every backward step his forces took was calculated in advance. Every fallen soldier was accounted for in the plan. He was allowing the Persians to occupy space that looked like conquered ground, but was actually the interior of a trap. And they walked into it willingly, eagerly, convinced they were winning. As the fighting dragged on through the morning, the Persian cavalry on both wings began to drift wider, spreading outward from the center. This was partly intentional. Cavalry needed room to maneuver, and good doctrine said they should position themselves to exploit breakthroughs once the enemy center collapsed. But it was also a consequence of the center's advance. As the infantry surged forward, the cavalry had to adjust their positions to maintain formation integrity. So they waited and waited, watching for the breakthrough that doctrine promised was coming. The Arab center was clearly weakening. Any moment now it would shatter completely. Then the cavalry could charge through, striking the broken remnants from the flanks, turning defeat into annihilation. But the breakthrough never quite came. The Arab line kept retreating but never actually shattering. It kept fighting but never quite collapsing. This delay mattered enormously, though the Persians didn't recognize it at the time. Cavalry that waits loses momentum. Cavalry that drifts outward loses cohesion with the rest of the army. Cavalry that expects an easy pursuit stops maintaining the tight discipline needed for combat against organized resistance. Khalid saw all of this. His position behind the Arab lines gave him clear view of the entire battlefield, his own forces, the Persian center, pushing forward. And critically, the Persian cavalry wings drifting further out to the sides with every passing hour. The Arab infantry in the center continued their controlled withdrawal, absorbing blow after blow, bleeding but never breaking. Men fell. Lines thinned. Wounded were pulled back. Fresh fighters rotated forward. The fighting was brutal, exhausting, terrifying for the men experiencing it. But discipline held because Khalid's officers understood the plan and trusted their commander absolutely. This was suffering by design. Sacrifice with purpose. Khalid understood something fundamental about imperial armies that most commanders never grasp. They hate uncertainty. They crave finality and clear resolution. Their entire doctrine is built around achieving decisive outcomes through the application of overwhelming force in predictable patterns. And the longer the Persians pushed forward without achieving that decisive break they'd been promised, the more psychologically aggressive they became. Uncertainty makes professional soldiers uncomfortable. It makes them want to force conclusion. By midday, the sun now directly overhead, heat radiating from armor and sand, water supplies depleting, exhaustion building. The Persian commander made the critical decision that Khalid had been engineering for hours. He ordered the center to press even harder, not to consolidate their gains, not to pause and realign the formation, not to wait for the wings to catch up, but to finish it, to break the Arab center completely and end this frustrating battle. This was the mistake Khalid had designed the entire engagement to produce. The Persian heavy infantry surged forward again with renewed aggression, stepping past their original formation alignment, driving deeper into the plain, stretching the line even further. Their formation lengthened like a rubber band being pulled. The wings, already struggling to keep pace with the center's advance, fell further behind. Gaps widened. Communication degraded further. And behind those low ridges on both flanks, completely invisible to every Persian soldier on the battlefield, the Arab cavalry waited. They had been waiting for hours now. Dust coated their armor and clothes. Horses shifted nervously, sensing their riders' tension. Men kept tight grip on reins and weapons. Sweat ran down faces and backs despite being in shade. The waiting was almost unbearable, hearing the battle raging just beyond the ridge, hearing the sounds of combat where their comrades were bleeding, unable to see what was happening, forbidden to move. But they had strict orders directly from Khalid: do not move. Do not reveal yourselves. Do not act until the signal comes. Stay hidden until the moment is perfect. Khalid rode to a position where he could see everything. The Persian center, now dangerously overextended, its formation stretched thin. The Persian wings drifted far out to the sides, struggling to maintain alignment with a center that had pushed too far forward. The rear of the Persian army, completely exposed, with supply trains and reserve formations, creating obstacles that would make rapid retreat difficult. Ahead of the Persians stood his own center, bloodied but intact, still fighting, still maintaining formation, despite hours of controlled withdrawal. On both sides, ground the Persians assumed was empty battlefield margin. Everything was in position. Khalid allowed the battle to grind on just a few minutes longer. Every additional minute increased Persian fatigue. Every additional minute deepened their psychological commitment. They'd pushed this hard, lost this many men. They couldn't turn back now without achieving victory. And then the moment arrived, not announced by trumpets or dramatic proclamation. Just the cold calculation that the geometry was perfect and the psychology was locked. Khalid raised his arm. The signal was given. From behind the ridges on both flanks, the Arab cavalry moved, first at a trot, staying low, using the terrain to mask their approach for as long as possible. Then, as they cleared the ridges and emerged into full view of the battlefield, into a full gallop, two mounted forces that had been completely invisible, that the Persians didn't know existed, hadn't planned for, had no tactical response prepared for, suddenly appeared on both sides simultaneously. Horses thundering, lances lowered, dust exploding into the air in massive clouds. This is the moment the Persian army stopped being a coherent military force and became a collection of isolated units fighting for survival. The Arab cavalry didn't charge straight into the Persian infantry blocks head-on. That would waste momentum against armored men in formation. They went for the rear, for the vulnerable, unprotected backs of the Persian wing cavalry and the exposed flanks of the infantry formations. For the space that every Persian soldier had assumed was safe, the area behind their own lines where reserves and supplies waited, where wounded were being treated, where commanders were positioned. Horses thundered down from the ridges in a coordinated charge that hit both Persian flanks simultaneously. The sound was overwhelming, thousands of hooves striking ground. The collective roar of cavalry warriors screaming battle cries. The distinctive thunder of a mounted charge that makes the earth shake. Lances lowered in unison, glinting in the harsh midday sun. Dust clouds rose so thick they momentarily obscured vision across entire sections of the battlefield. The Persian cavalry, positioned on the wings, reacted to the threat, but they were already stretched out, already misaligned from the main formation, already in the wrong positions. They had been expecting to charge forward against broken infantry. Instead, they were being charged by fresh cavalry, attacking from angles they hadn't prepared for. When they turned to respond, they found themselves engaged in chaotic mounted combat without the formation, discipline, or momentum that cavalry needs to be effective. Units tried to wheel around. Orders were shouted, but contradicted each other, as different commanders made different assessments. Some Persian cavalry attempted to form defensive positions. Others tried to charge back at the Arab horsemen. The result was chaos, exactly what happens when doctrine meets unexpected reality and there's no time to properly respond. This is where the carefully maintained discipline of professional armies begins to collapse. Infantry formations rely on absolute certainty about where threats are coming from. Their entire defensive posture, how shields are positioned, which direction spears point, how units support each other, is oriented toward the enemy, to their front. Suddenly, threats were coming from behind. Persian infantry units in the rear ranks heard the thunder of cavalry charges and turned to look. They saw their own cavalry engaged in desperate fighting. They saw Arab horsemen appearing from nowhere, driving toward them. Instinct screamed to turn and face this new threat. But if they turned, they'd be exposing their backs to the Arab infantry they'd been pushing against all morning. Officers tried to maintain order, shouting commands to hold position, to trust the cavalry to handle the flanks. But human psychology doesn't work that way. When you hear combat behind you, every instinct says, turn around. Units began to hesitate, to shift, to lose the perfect alignment that makes heavy infantry effective. And Khalid, watching from his command position, saw the Persian cohesion begin to fracture. Now he struck the final, devastating blow. He ordered the Arab center the units that had been retreating for hours, giving ground step by step, absorbing punishment to stop, and then to advance. What had looked like exhaustion and near collapse became sudden, coordinated aggression. Arab warriors who had been fighting defensively, yielding space, now surged forward with everything they had left. The psychological impact on the Persians was shattering. They had been pushing against this line for hours. They had believed these men were on the verge of breaking. They had committed everything to breaking them. And suddenly, impossibly, the line was attacking. The Persians in the front ranks had no context for understanding what was happening behind them. All they knew was that the enemy they'd been beating backward was now pushing forward with renewed intensity. Some tried to hold. Others, exhausted from hours of combat, began to step back. The beautiful coordination of the morning's advance disappeared into the chaos of men making individual survival decisions. The Persian army was now being compressed from three sides simultaneously. Front, where the Arab center was advancing. Rear, where Arab cavalry had smashed into their supply trains and reserves. Flanks, where Arab cavalry had engaged and was destroying the Persian wing cavalry. This wasn't a conventional battle anymore. This was containment. A vice closing from multiple directions. And the space in the middle, where 30,000 Persian soldiers were packed, was shrinking. This is the moment when panic begins to spread faster than orders can counter it. Men at the rear, seeing cavalry charging toward them, tried to turn and form defensive positions. But turning meant breaking formation with the men in front. Men in the center ranks, hearing combat from behind and ahead, didn't know which way to face. Officers shouted contradictory commands. Some ordered advance. Others ordered defensive positions. Still others recognized the catastrophe unfolding and ordered retreat. When different parts of an army receive different orders, coordination dies. When coordination dies in a tightly packed formation under attack from multiple directions, panic replaces discipline. Persian soldiers began dropping shields to turn faster. Others were trampled by their own comrades trying to reposition. Cavalry crashed into infantry units that couldn't properly defend themselves because they were oriented wrong. The professional army that had marched onto this field with absolute confidence was disintegrating unit by unit. Persian officers, experienced men who had commanded in previous wars, who understood tactics and doctrine, tried desperately to restore control. They failed. Not because they were incompetent, But because control requires space, clear communication, and time, Khalid had taken all three away. The Persian formations didn't have space to maneuver because they were packed too tightly, compressed by attacks from three sides. They didn't have clear communication because the battlefield had become chaos, with dust obscuring vision and noise drowning out orders. They didn't have time because the Arab cavalry wasn't pausing to let them reorganize. This is the exact moment when history pivots on a single battlefield. The moment a professional imperial army trained for centuries in proven doctrine realizes that doctrine has failed catastrophically and there's no recovery possible. Within minutes after Khalid's trap closed completely, Persian cohesion dissolved from organized fighting force into desperate individual struggles for survival. Units that had been advancing in perfect formation an hour earlier now broke apart completely. Soldiers who had fought shoulder to shoulder with comrades abandoned their positions, trying to find escape routes that no longer existed. The plain that had looked so open and inviting in the morning had become a killing ground. Retreat paths that should have been clear were clogged with panicked men, dying horses, abandoned equipment, and the wounded who couldn't move fast enough. The Arab cavalry pressed inward, tightening the circle methodically. They weren't pursuing recklessly or breaking formation to chase individual targets. They maintained cohesion, working together to compress the Persian force even further. Every minute the circle got smaller. Every minute escape became more impossible. Dust choked the air, turning visibility to almost nothing in some areas. The sound was overwhelming, thousands of men screaming in terror and pain. Steel clashing against steel, horses neighing in panic, officers still trying to shout orders that nobody could hear or follow. The heat that had been building all morning was now unbearable. Men in heavy armor were collapsing from heat exhaustion even aside from combat wounds. And still the Arab cavalry didn't stop. They pressed inward, inexorable, systematic. By late afternoon, the sun beginning its descent toward the western horizon, casting long shadows across a battlefield transformed into horror, organized Persian resistance ended. Not because every Persian soldier was dead, but because there was no longer any coordinated military force capable of offering resistance. What remained were individual soldiers and small groups trying desperately to escape. Thousands of Persians lay dead on the field. The bodies were concentrated in certain areas where the cavalry charges had hit hardest, where the compressed formations had been packed tightest, where men had been trampled by their own retreating comrades. Thousands more fled, running in whatever direction seemed to offer escape. They abandoned weapons because weapons were heavy and slowed you down. They abandoned armor for the same reason. They abandoned wounded comrades who couldn't keep pace. They abandoned their military identity entirely. Persian soldiers, who that morning had marched with pride, now ran as terrified individuals who wanted only to survive. And Khalid ibn al-Walid, watching from his position, did not order reckless pursuit. He didn't let his cavalry scatter across the landscape chasing individuals. He maintained discipline, even in victory. Why? Because he understood what had really been destroyed at Walaja wasn't just an army of 30,000 men. It was an idea. The idea that Persian military formations were invincible when properly deployed. The idea that imperial doctrine guaranteed victory against tribal forces. The idea that desert armies could be fixed in place and systematically destroyed through superior weight and coordination. All of those ideas died on this field. And ideas, once killed, spread their death through every military force that shares them. As the sun set over Walaja, the battlefield fell silent faster than anyone had expected. Not because the fighting had been clean or quick, it had been horrific and had lasted all day, but because there was literally no one left to fight. Bodies covered the plain. Persian banners that represented centuries of imperial military tradition lay trampled in dust and blood. Armor that had once symbolized the certainty of imperial power now just weighed down corpses beneath the cooling evening sky. This had not been a narrow tactical defeat where an army loses a battle but remains intact. This was destruction, the systematic annihilation of a military force. And the survivors, those thousands of Persian soldiers who managed to escape with their lives, carried something more dangerous to their empire than physical wounds. They carried the memory of invincibility shattering. They carried the knowledge that everything they'd been trained to believe about warfare could fail catastrophically. They carried fear. Let's talk about contemporary parallels, because Walaja teaches lessons that echo through every era of warfare. Think about doctrinal rigidity. Persians had centuries-proven system, followed it exactly, lost catastrophically. Modern, every military defeated by doctrine. France, 1940, Maginot Line, thinking. Bypassed through Ardennes. U.S.-Vietnam conventional warfare doctrine versus guerrilla tactics. Soviets Afghanistan armor, air power doctrine versus mountainous insurgency. Israeli 1973 Yom Kippur, overconfidence in doctrine, surprised by coordinated Egyptian-Syrian attack. Doctrine that can't adapt kills armies. Think about controlled retreat as bait. Khalid deliberately gave ground to stretch enemy. Modern feigned retreat timeless. Mongols versus Europeans fake withdrawals. Then, encirclement. Russians versus Napoleon traded space for time. Destroyed Grand Armée. Soviets' World War II strategic depth absorbed German advances. Vietnamese withdraw. Avoid decisive battle. Outlast. Retreat can be weapon, if intentional. Think about double envelopment perfection. Attacking both flanks plus center creates killing zone. Modern Cannae template repeated. German pincer movements. Poland. France. Stalingrad Soviets encircled German Sixth Army. Falaise, pocket allies trapped Germans' France. 1944. Iraqi forces Kuwait, 1991, enveloped by coalition. Incheon landing, MacArthur cut North Korean supply lines. Envelopment, when executed perfectly, is annihilation. Think about hidden reserves. Khalid concealed cavalry behind ridges for hours. Modern hidden forces, decisive. D-Day, Allied deception about landing site. Hidden buildup. Kursk Soviet reserve surprised Germans. Chinese Korea, massive forces hidden. Surprised UN. Battle of 73 easting U.S. forces appeared from sandstorm. Destroyed Iraqis. Surprise reserves shatter enemy plans. Think about psychological warfare. Walaja destroyed Persian confidence empire-wide. Modern one battle breaks morale. Singapore, 1942 British fortress fell. Shattered colonial myth. Dien Bien Phu French defeat. ended colonial will. Tet Offensive Tactical U.S. Victory. Strategic Psychological Defeat. Grozny, 1995. Russian defeat shocked military. Some defeats destroy more than armies, they destroy belief. Think about overextension punishment. Persian center, pushed too far. Isolated from wings. Modern overextension fatal. Market garden British pushed too far. Cut off. Destroyed. Chosin reservoir Chinese encircled overextended UN forces. Kherson nearly surrounded by overextending. Russian column Ukraine 40 miles stretched. Vulnerable. Destroyed piecemeal. Advancing without securing flanks is suicide. Think about timing precision. Khalid waited until retreat psychologically impossible for Persians. Modern timing is everything. Midway attacked Japanese carriers during aircraft recovery. Stalingrad Soviet winter offensive when Germans exhausted. Incheon Tidal timing perfect. Logistics miracle. Desert Storm attacked when Iraqi forces deployed wrong. Right action, wrong time fails. Perfect timing wins. Think about the patience. Khalid let Persians believe winning for hours before springing trap. Modern patience versus aggression. Fabius versus Hannibal avoided battle until conditions favored Rome. Washington avoided decisive battle until Yorktown. Jihad, patient decades-long strategy. Taliban waited 20 years. Outlasted occupation. Impatience, lose wars. Passions, wins. Think about communication breakdown. Persian units received contradictory orders. Cohesion collapsed. Modern chaos in command structure. Iraq, 2003. Command disrupted. Army dissolved. Grozny Russian units couldn't coordinate. Syrian rebels fragmented command. Defeated piecemeal. Communication is nervous system, cut it. Army dies. Think about combined arms. Khalid, coordinated infantry holding action plus cavalry envelopment perfectly. Modern integration essential. Desert Storm, air plus ground plus naval coordination. Ukraine drones plus artillery plus infantry. Israeli operations air, ground, intelligence, integrated. Separate elements weaker than coordinated whole. Think about terrain exploitation. Khalid used ridges to hide cavalry, flat center to invite overextension. Modern terrain determines tactics. Thermopylae narrow pass negated Persian numbers. Iadrong helicopters overcame jungle terrain. Grozny urban terrain favored defenders. Afghanistan mountains favor defense eternally. Master terrain or terrain masters you? Think about intelligence failure. Persians had no idea cavalry hidden on flanks. Modern intelligence gaps catastrophic. Pearl Harbor, U.S. surprised despite warnings. Tet North Vietnamese buildup undetected. 9/11 intelligence failure despite indicators. Iraqi WMD assumed present. Wasn't. Ignorance of enemy capabilities kills. Think about pursuit discipline. Khalid didn't chase scattered enemies recklessly. Maintained formation. Modern, disciplined exploitation. Pattern fast but controlled advances. Israeli Sinai pursued but maintained coherence. Kuwait pursued to highway of death but stopped. Reckless pursuit loses cohesion. Disciplined pursuit consolidates victory. Think about imperial arrogance. Persians viewed Arabs as inferior, underestimated capabilities. Modern underestimating lesser opponents. British-Afghan wars underestimated Afghan fighters repeatedly. Soviet Afghanistan underestimated Mujahideen. U.S. Vietnam underestimated NVA, VC. Russian Chechnya underestimated insurgents. Contempt for enemy is first step to defeat. Think about the ripple effect. One battle destroyed Persian confidence for entire war. Modern strategic defeats compound. France, 1940. Collapse, psychological after Belgium. Philippines, 1942. Demoralized U.S. Pacific forces. Dien Bien Phu ended French will to continue. Soviet Afghanistan, defeats accumulated. Withdrew. One battle can break national will. Think about maneuver warfare. Khalid emphasized movement and timing over firepower. Modern maneuver school doctrine. German blitzkrieg, speed and coordination. U.S. airland battle maneuver over attrition. Israeli armor doctrine, movement decisive. Ukrainian mobile defense, avoid static positions. Maneuver constantly. Movement creates opportunities. Static positions create targets. Think about predictability, exploitation. Khalid knew Persian doctrine, predicted responses, exploited them. Modern predictable enemies die. German codes broken. Ultra, Enigma enabled Allied predictions. Taliban pattern recognition, U.S. learned routes, tactics. Russian tactics, Ukraine predictable. Countered. Predictability removes surprise. Surprise is asymmetric advantage. Think about center of gravity. Khalid attacked Persian psychological center confidence in doctrine. Modern identify enemy's critical vulnerability. German fuel supplies, World War II bombed. Refineries, transport. Japanese merchant shipping submarine campaign, strangled economy. Iraqi Republican Guard destroyed. Regime collapsed. Taliban sanctuaries, Pakistan attacked. Disrupted operations. Destroy center of gravity. Enemy collapses. Think about force multiplication. Khalid's 15,000 defeated 30,000 through tactics. Modern tactics multiply power. Finish winter war, outnumbered 3-1. Inflicted massive casualties. Israeli Six-Day War preemptive strike multiplied effectiveness. Ukrainian drones, cheap tech, multiplied by tactics. Hezbollah, 2006 tactics, compensated for Israeli superiority. Smart tactics beat dumb numbers. Think about the morale versus material. Persian had better equipment. Arabs had better morale, leadership. Modern spirit matters. Vietnamese, less equipment, more determination. Mujahideen, primitive weapons versus Soviet tech. 1. Taliban outlasted high-tech occupation. Ukrainian resistance outperformed expectations through will. Moral is force. Multiplier material can't replace. Think about logistics vulnerability. Persian retreat, disrupted by own supply trains blocking paths. Modern logistics is vulnerability. German Stalingrad couldn't resupply. Japanese Pacific Islands cut off. Starved. ISIS, oil revenue, targeted, weakened. Russian-Ukraine 40-kilometer convoy stalled. Logistics failure. Logistics is Achilles' heel, protect yours. Target theirs. Think about operational security. Khalid kept cavalry hidden until perfect moment. Modern secrecy enables surprise. Manhattan Project secrecy until Hiroshima. Bin Laden raid total secrecy until executed. Mossad operations secrecy enables success. Special operations classification protects methods. Secrets kept are advantages preserved. Think about adaptive enemy. Khalid adapted to Persian strengths by avoiding direct strength versus strength. Modern asymmetric adaptation. Viet Cong avoided U.S. firepower. Used guerrilla tactics. IED insurgents adapted to U.S. armor. Somali militia, Mogadishu, adapted tactics. ISIS adapted to coalition air power. Adapt or die is literal in warfare. Think about historical study. Khalid likely studied canny. Applied double envelopment. Modern history teaches. Rommel studied WWI tanks. Applied World War II. Giep studied Mao. Applied Vietnam. Israeli officers study historical battles. U.S. Military Academy's History Core Curriculum. Study history or repeat mistakes. Think about the fog of war. Persian commander couldn't see cavalry behind ridges. Modern information, incomplete always. Gulf War Iraqi didn't see full coalition deployment. Afghanistan, Taliban hidden among population. Ukraine fog of war affects both sides. Perfect information, impossible. Deal with uncertainty. Think about initiative. Khalid seized initiative. Dictated battle flow. Persians reacted. Modern initiative is advantage. German 1940 seized initiative. France reacted. Israeli 1967 preempted. Arabs reacted. Ukraine Kharkiv offensive seized initiative. Russian reacted. Who controls initiative controls battle. Think about reserves commitment. Persian commander committed reserves prematurely to finish battle. Modern reserve timing critical. German Kursk committed reserves too early. Soviet counteroffensive successful. U.S. Bulge held reserves. Counterattacked effectively. Israeli 1973 reserve mobilization saved from initial defeats. Commit reserves too early equals no emergency response. Think about deception operations. Khalid's retreat was deception to lure overextension. Modern deception is force, multiplier. Operation Fortitude, D-Day, deception about landing site. Operation Mincemeat Sicily invasion, deception. Iraqi-Iran war deceptions about offensives. Ukrainian deceptions, misdirection before Kharkiv offensive. Deceive enemy. They position wrong. You win. Think about interior lines. Once encircled, Persians couldn't maneuver. Arabs attacked from all sides with short distances. Modern geometry matters. German interior lines WWI could shift forces east-west. Soviet Stalingrad interior position. Germans extended. Israeli geography, interior lines versus surrounding Arabs. Whoever controls interior position can mass forces faster. Think about command control. Khalid positioned where he could see whole battlefield. Persian commander couldn't. Modern sea, too, is critical. Eisenhower coordination of Allied forces. Schwarzkopf, Desert Storm, Command Center. Network-centric warfare information dominance. Ukrainian Starlink communication maintained despite Russian jamming. See battlefield clearly. Command effectively. Think about shock action. Sudden appearance of cavalry from both sides simultaneously shattered Persian cohesion. Modern shock and awe. Desert Storm, overwhelming firepower opening. Israeli, 1,967. Simultaneous airstrikes, all Egyptian airfields. Shock creates paralysis. Paralysis creates opportunity. Think about exploitation of success. Khalid didn't pause after encirclement began. Pressed advantage immediately. Modern exploit momentum. Patton exploited Normandy breakout rapidly. Israeli armor exploit breakthroughs immediately. Ukrainian Kharkiv exploited Russian confusion. Advanced rapidly. Hesitation wastes opportunities. Boldness maximizes them. Think about culminating point. Persian advance reached culmination when fully extended. Khalid struck then. Modern recognize culmination. German Russia culminated before Moscow. US Vietnam couldn't reach decisive culmination. Israeli 1,973 Egyptian advance culminated at passes. Recognize enemy culmination. Counterattack succeeds. Think about principles of war. Walaja demonstrates objective destroy Persian army. Offensive controlled retreat. Then counterattack. Mass concentrated forces at decisive point. Economy of force. Minimum center. Maximum flanks. Maneuver cavalry envelopment. Unity of command. Khalid. Security concealment. Surprise hidden cavalry. Simplicity. Clear plan. Modern principles unchanged. Studied at war colleges globally. Principles are timeless. Technology changes. Human factors constant. Think about professional versus inspired. Persian professionals followed doctrine. Arab warriors inspired by leadership, cause. Modern inspiration matters. Israeli forces inspired by survival. Hezbollah ideologically motivated. Ukrainian defenders defending homeland. Professionals execute doctrine. Inspired exceed doctrine. Both needed. Inspiration edges close. Fights. Think about pursuit operations. Khalid maintained discipline and victory. Not reckless massacre. Modern disciplined pursuit consolidates. Patton rapid but controlled pursuit France. MacArthur Inchon pursuit cut NK forces. Coalition Kuwait pursued to Iraqi border, then halted. Reckless pursuit creates vulnerabilities. Disciplined pursuit secures victory. Think about strategic implications. Walaja psychological blow prepared Persian collapse later battles. Modern battles have strategic weight. Dien Bien Phu tactical victory. Strategic effect ended French will. Tet tactical defeat. Strategic victory shifted U.S. opinion. Battle outcomes matter beyond battlefield. Think about the narrative. Survivors spread story of Persian invincibility shattered. Multiplied psychological effect. Modern information warfare. Vietnam images. Stories shaped perception. Iraq Abu Ghraib, photos strategic defeat. Ukraine social media shapes global perception. Narrative is battlefield. Think about enemy assessment. Persians assumed Arabs inferior. Died, learning otherwise. Modern accurate assessment, critical. U.S. pre-Korea, underestimated Chinese. NK. Soviets Afghanistan, underestimated Mujahideen determination. Russia Ukraine, underestimated Ukrainian capabilities. Wrong assessment leads to wrong strategy leads to defeat. Think about lesson learning. Persians should have learned from earlier Arab victories. Didn't adapt. Modern institutional learning. U.S. Vietnam lessons influenced later doctrine. Israel post-1973 reforms. Russia-Ukraine war forcing adaptation. Learning organizations survive. Rashidun's Dia. Think about command selection. Khalid was battlefield genius. Persian commander name lost to history. Modern leadership matters enormously. Grant versus McClellan, same army. Different results. Rommel versus Italian commanders, North Africa. Giap versus French commanders. Petraeus versus earlier Iraq commanders. Great commanders multiply force effectiveness. Think about all-arms cooperation. Infantry held center. Cavalry executed envelopment. Perfect coordination. Modern joint operations. Air-land battle coordination multiplies effect. Naval, air-ground, amphibious operations require all. Cyber-kinetic modern warfare, multi-domain. Integration is advantage. Separation is weakness. Think about operational art. Walaja wasn't just tactics. Was operational destroyed Persian field army. Opened Iraq. Modern operations link tactics to strategy. Incheon operational maneuver changed Korean War. Desert Storm operational campaign plan. Ukrainian operations, tactical battles, serve operational goals. Winning battles without operational purpose is pointless. Think about mission command. Khalid gave cavalry commanders clear mission, trusted execution. Modern mission command doctrine. German Auftragstaktik, Subordinates empowered. U.S. mission orders intent plus autonomy. Israeli officer initiative expected improvisation. Centralized intent. Decentralized execution. Think about the sustainability. Khalid maintained force cohesion through battle. Could continue campaign. Modern sustain the force. U.S. logistics sustain global operations. Russian failures, Ukraine couldn't sustain operations. Israeli sustain through reservist system. Winning battle but exhausting force is Pyrrhic victory. Think about civil-military relations. Khalid served broader Islamic expansion goals. Military served political. Modern military serves policy. Clausewitz War is politics. U.S. civilian control of military. Israeli military serves political goals. Russia military serves Putin's political aims. Military divorced from policy is dangerous. Think about technological parity. Neither side had tech advantage. Tactics decided. Modern tech isn't everything. U.S.-Vietnam tech advantage. Lost. Soviet-Afghanistan tech advantage. Lost. Coalition Afghanistan tech advantage. Withdrew. Taliban low tech. Won patience. Tech advantage helps. Doesn't guarantee victory. Think about human factors. Courage, fear, exhaustion, confusion affected Persian collapse. Modern human dimension unchanged. Psychological effects of combat. PTSD recognition. Morale maintenance programs. Human factors don't change, flesh still bleeds. Minds still break. Fear still paralyzes. Think about the finality. Walaja annihilated Persian field force, not just defeated. Modern destruction versus defeat. Stalingrad destroyed German 6th Army completely. Falaise destroyed German 7th Army. Debaltseve, Ukrainian forces nearly destroyed. Mariupol Azov Regiment, destroyed, captured. Some battles destroy, others just defeat. Destruction is permanent. What's the final lesson of Walaja 633 AD? Superior tactics, executed with perfect timing, beat superior numbers and equipment. Khalid ibn al-Walid faced 30,000 professional Persian soldiers with 15,000 Arab warriors. Persians had better armor, proven doctrine, centuries of military tradition. Arabs had better leadership, better tactics, better understanding of how to weaponize enemy assumptions. Khalid didn't try to match Persian strength. He studied their doctrine, predicted their responses, engineered situations where their strengths became liabilities. Controlled retreat stretched Persian formation. Hidden cavalry created false sense of security. Perfect timing made retreat psychologically impossible, even when physically possible. Modern confirmation force multiplication through superior tactics. Israelis routinely defeat numerically superior forces through tactical excellence. Finish winter war outnumbered 3-1. Inflicted 5-1 casualties through tactics. Ukrainian resistance, smaller force, better tactics. Won battles. Tactics can multiply force effectiveness several times. Walaja teaches doctrine that can't adapt is vulnerability. Persians had proven system, worked for centuries, then failed catastrophically when facing enemy who understood it and exploited its rigidity. Modern France, 1940 Maginot Line doctrine bypassed. U.S., Vietnam, conventional doctrine versus unconventional warfare. Soviet Afghanistan armor, air doctrine versus mountain insurgency. Doctrine is tool, not religion. When tool doesn't work, change tool. Walaja teaches timing matters more than strength. Khalid could have attacked earlier. Persians would have been less extended, but less committed. Could have attacked later. Persians might have recognized danger. Withdrawn. Attacked at exact moment, when Persian commitment total but position maximally vulnerable. Modern operational art is timing. Midway attacked during carrier aircraft recovery. Stalingrad winter offensive when Germans exhausted. Incheon tidal window perfect. Desert Storm attacked when Iraqis deployed for wrong battle. Right action at wrong time fails. Perfect timing multiplies success. Walaja teaches psychology is battlefield. Khalid didn't just destroy Persian army at Walaja, destroyed Persian confidence empire-wide. Survivors spread fear, Arab armies unpredictable. Encirclements appear from nowhere. Victories turn to disasters. Every subsequent Persian force fought with memory of Walaja. That hesitation was fatal. Modern psychological operations are war. Tet offensive tactical U.S. victory. Psychological defeat. 9/11 small attack. Massive psychological impact. Ukrainian resistance, psychological victory over expected Russian conquest. Fear is weapon as deadly as bullets. Walaja teaches, hidden reserves, decide battles. Persian commanders thought they saw entire Arab force. Didn't know cavalry hidden behind ridges. When cavalry appeared, battle was already over. Not because cavalry destroyed entire Persian army alone, but because sudden appearance from unexpected direction shattered cohesion. Modern surprise reserves are game changers. D-Day German reserves positioned wrong based on deception. Kursk Soviet reserves shocked Germans. Chinese Korea, massive forces hidden, surprised MacArthur. Incheon, North Koreans didn't expect amphibious landing. Reserves out of position. What enemy doesn't know kills them. Walaja teaches overextension is death. Persian center pushed so hard, so far, they isolated themselves from wings, created gaps, made retreat impossible. Khalid didn't stop their advance, encouraged it. Let them overextend until they were maximally vulnerable. Modern overextension punished repeatedly. Market Garden British pushed too far. Destroyed. Chosin, UN forces overextended. Encircled by Chinese. Russian 40-mile convoy overextended. Destroyed piecemeal. German Russia overextended. Couldn't sustain. Advance must be sustainable or becomes trap. Walaja teaches intelligence wins wars. Khalid had intelligence about Persian doctrine, tactics, probable responses. Persians had zero intelligence about hidden cavalry. Information asymmetry determined outcome before fighting began. Modern intelligence is decisive. World War II, Ultra, Enigma, code-breaking changed war. Israeli intelligence enables preemptive strikes. U.S. intelligence enables precision strikes. Russian intelligence failures, Ukraine contributed to initial failures. No enemy plans. You've already won. Walaja teaches maneuver, beats firepower. Arabs didn't have better weapons or armor. Had better movement cavalry appearing at perfect moment, perfect place. Movement creates opportunities. Static position creates targets. Modern maneuver warfare doctrine. German blitzkrieg movement over firepower. Israeli armor maneuver decisive. U.S. air-land battle maneuver to enemy weak points. Maneuver is geometry of warfare. Walaja teaches combined arms essential. Khalid's infantry held center. Cavalry executed envelopment. Perfect coordination. One without other fails infantry alone would be crushed. Cavalry alone couldn't fix Persians in place. Together, annihilated enemy. Modern joint operations standard. Air plus ground plus naval coordination. Drones plus artillery plus infantry. Cyber plus kinetic strikes. Elements separately weaker than coordinated whole. Walaja teaches moral courage precedes physical courage. Khalid's infantry gave ground for hours. absorbed casualties, maintained discipline despite appearing to lose, required moral courage to trust plan when bleeding. Persian infantry pushed forward bravely, but into trap. Bravery without wisdom is waste. Modern moral courage is leadership. Officers who question bad orders. Strategic patience over tactical urgency. Ukrainian forces' tactical withdrawals served strategic defense. Courage to retreat when retreat is smart. Walaja teaches pursuit discipline matters. Khalid didn't let cavalry scatter chasing individuals. Maintained formation, consolidated victory, preserved force for next battle. Reckless pursuit wastes victory. Disciplined exploitation secures it. Modern exploitation phase, critical. Pattern rapid but controlled pursuit. Israeli operations exploit but maintain coherence. Discipline and victory harder than discipline and defeat. Equally important. Walaja teaches, one battle can change war. Walaja didn't end Persian Empire immediately, but broke its psychological spine. Every subsequent battle fought with Walaja's shadow Persian hesitation, Arab confidence. Momentum shifted permanently. Modern strategic battles exist. Midway turned Pacific War. Stalingrad turned Eastern Front. Dien Bien Phu ended French colonialism. First Gulf War demonstrated new warfare. Some battles are worth more than others. Walaja teaches study enemy doctrine. Khalid understood Persian system better than Persians understood Arab tactics. Used Persian predictability as weapon. Every doctrine has assumptions. Assumptions create vulnerabilities. Exploit assumptions. Modern know thy enemy. U.S. studied Soviet doctrine Cold War. Israelis study Arab military culture. Chinese study U.S. way of war. Understanding enemy doctrine lets you predict responses. Prediction enables exploitation. Walaja teaches flexibility beats rigidity. Arabs adapted tactics to terrain. Enemy. Situation. Persians followed doctrine regardless of circumstances. Flexibility allowed Arabs to create situations doctrine couldn't handle. Modern adaptive organizations survive. Israeli military constant adaptation. U.S. lessons learned process. Rigid organizations, Soviet Afghanistan. French Indochina lost. Adapt or die is literal. Walaja teaches initiative is advantage. Khalid seized initiative, dictated battle flow. Persians reacted. Who controls initiative controls battle. Reactive forces respond to attackers' timing. Proactive forces create situations enemies must respond to. Modern initiative defines tempo. German World War II seized initiative repeatedly. Israeli preemptive strikes seize initiative. Ukrainian Kharkiv offensive seized initiative when Russians static. Initiative is momentum. Momentum is advantage. Walaja teaches deception multiplies force. Khalid's controlled retreat deceived Persians into thinking they were winning. Hidden cavalry deceived Persians about Arab strength. Deception made 15,000 fight like 30,000 by appearing where unexpected. Modern deception is force multiplier. D-Day deception about landing site. Israeli Entebbe deception about capabilities. Iraqi decoys. Kuwait fooled coalition targeting. Ukrainian deceptions. Misdirection before operations. Deceive enemy into wrong position. You win before fighting. Walaja teaches terrain is weapon. Khalid used ridges to hide cavalry. Flat center to invite overextension. Heat to exhaust armored Persians. Terrain isn't neutral. Master it, or it masters you. Modern terrain determines tactics. Thermopylae terrain multiplied Greek effectiveness. Vietnam jungle terrain favored defense. Afghanistan mountains favor defense eternally. Urban warfare terrain changes all rules. Terrain is constant factor. Ignore at your peril. Walaja teaches communication is critical. Persian units received contradictory orders as battle devolved. Cohesion collapsed. Khalid maintained clear command. Units executed synchronized. Communication breakdown is death sentence for armies. Modern C. 4 ISR decisive. Network-centric warfare. Information dominance. Ukrainian Starlink maintained communication despite jamming. Russian communications failures. Ukraine contributed to defeats. Modern armies are networks. Cut communication. They die. Walaja teaches logistics is vulnerability. Persian retreat disrupted by own supply trains blocking escape routes. Logistics necessary for operations, but creates vulnerability if not protected. Modern logistics determines operations. German Stalingrad couldn't resupply encircled forces. Japanese Pacific Islands cut off. Starved. Russian convoy Ukraine logistics failed. Operations stalled. Protect your logistics. Target enemies. Walaja teaches. Morale is multiplier. Arab forces maintained morale despite casualties. Persians' morale shattered when encirclement appeared. Morale determines fighting effectiveness as much as weapons. Modern morale matters. Finnish Winter War morale compensated for numerical inferiority. Vietnamese determination outlasted U.S. firepower. Ukrainian morale exceeded pre-war expectations. Afghan Mujahideen morale versus Soviet tech. Morale is intangible. Effects are tangible. Walaja teaches leadership is everything. Khalid was tactical genius. Persian commander name lost to history that tells you everything. Great commanders multiply force effectiveness. Poor commanders divide it. Modern leadership decisive. Rommel versus Italian commanders. Grant versus McClellan. Same army, different results. Giap versus French commanders. Petraeus versus earlier Iraq commanders. Leadership can be studied but not taught. You either have it or you don't. Walaja teaches fog of war is real. Persian commander couldn't see cavalry behind ridges. Didn't know true Arab dispositions. Perfect information, impossible. Decision-making under uncertainty is reality. Modern intelligence, incomplete always. Iraq, WMD assumed present. Wasn't. Afghanistan, Taliban among population. Hard to identify. Ukraine fog affects both sides. Accept uncertainty. Make best decisions with incomplete information. Walaja teaches, experience isn't everything. Persians had centuries of military tradition. Arabs were newer fighting force. Experience without adaptation is liability. Modern institutional knowledge versus innovation. U.S.-Vietnam experience didn't prevent Iraq, Afghanistan challenges. Soviet-Afghanistan experience didn't prevent Chechen difficulties. Experience is valuable, but can create mental rigidity. Fresh thinking sometimes beats experience. Walaja teaches, victory requires risk. Khalid risked center being broken during controlled retreat. If Persian breakthrough happened before cavalry ready, plan failed. Calculated risk, but risk nonetheless. No risk, no victory. Modern operational risk calculations. Incheon risky amphibious landing, high payoff. Market garden risky, failed. Israeli operations calculated risks. Risk-averse commanders rarely achieve decisive victories. Walaja teaches political military alignment matters. Khalid served broader Islamic expansion. Military operations aligned with political goals. Military without political purpose is aimless. Modern Clausewitz war is politics by other means. Military serves political objectives. U.S. civilian control ensures alignment. Israeli military serves political survival. Russia military serves Putin's political aims. Disconnect between political and military dooms campaigns. Walaja teaches cultural factors matter. Arab warriors motivated by religious conviction, tribal honor, trust in Khalid. Persian soldiers fought for empire, pay, professional pride. Different motivations create different fighting effectiveness. Modern understanding, culture critical. U.S. cultural misunderstanding contributed to Iraq, Afghanistan difficulties. Israeli understand Arab culture. Russian underestimated Ukrainian identity, nationalism. Culture shapes behavior. Behavior affects combat. Walaja teaches reserve, commitment, timing. Persian commander committed reserves prematurely, trying to finish battle. No reserves left when cavalry appeared. Khalid held cavalry reserve until perfect moment. Reserve timing determines battle outcome. Modern reserve management critical. German Kursk committed reserves too early. Lost. U.S. Bulge held reserves. Counterattacked successfully. Israeli reserve system allows mass mobilization. Commit reserves too early equals no emergency response. Too late equals missed opportunity. Walaja teaches pursuit operations consolidate victory. Khalid didn't let Persians regroup, maintained pressure. Disciplined pursuit turns tactical victory into strategic success. Reckless pursuit creates vulnerability. Modern exploitation phase. Patton pursued rapidly, but controlled. Israeli Sinai pursuit cut off Egyptian retreat. Coalition Kuwait pursued to Iraqi border. Ukrainian Kharkiv exploited Russian confusion. Pursue intelligently, not recklessly. Walaja teaches one-sided casualties matter strategically. Arabs lost soldiers but maintained fighting force. Persians lost army and morale and confidence. Modern attrition calculations. Vietnam U.S. won most battles. Lost attrition, war of will. Afghanistan coalition won battles. Lost patience. Ukraine casualty exchange rates matter strategically. Battles are about casualty exchange. Wars about sustainability. Walaja teaches battlefield myths die hard. Persian military invincibility was myth. Walaja killed it. But myths take time to die fully. Modern military myths. French Army 1940 myth of strength shattered. British Singapore 1942 myth of invincibility died. Soviet Afghanistan myth of unstoppable power broken. U.S. Vietnam myth of inevitable victory died. Myths provide confidence until they meet reality. Walaja teaches historical study matters. Khalid likely studied historical battles, possibly Kani. Adapted principles to situation. History teaches if you're willing to learn. Modern professional military education. Staff colleges study historical battles. Israeli officers study military history. U.S. academies, history, core curriculum. Russians study World War II obsessively. Study history or repeat mistakes. Walaja teaches small advantages compound. Arabs had small cavalry advantage. Exploited perfectly. Small tactical edge became decisive, strategic victory. Modern marginal gains philosophy. Small improvements across multiple areas create large overall advantage. Technology plus training plus tactics plus morale equals compound advantage. Focus on cumulative, small advantages, not single decisive factor. Walaja teaches simplicity beats complexity. Khalid's plan was simple. Hold center. Hide cavalry. Wait for overextension. Encircle. Simple plans execute reliably. Complex plans fail from friction. Modern KISS principle. Simple plans resilient to friction. Complex plans vulnerable to Murphy's Law. D-Day complex but broken into simple phases. Israeli operations, simple operational concepts. Complexity is enemy of execution. Walaja teaches mental warfare precedes physical. Khalid got inside Persian decision cycle, controlled their responses. Physical battle was execution of mental victory already achieved. Modern Boyd's ODA loop. Decision cycle speed matters. Israeli faster decision-making than Arabs. U.S. technology enables faster decisions. Ukrainian agile decision-making versus Russian rigidity. Win mental battle. Physical battle is formality. Walaja teaches institutional learning. Persians should have learned from Arab victories in border regions. Adapted tactics. Didn't. Institutional rigidity prevented learning. Modern learning organizations. U.S. after-action reviews institutionalized. Israeli constant tactical adaptation. Organizations that learn survive. Those that don't die. Create feedback loops. Incorporate lessons. Adapt continuously. If this battle changed how you see tactical genius and psychological warfare, subscribe to Maproom Battles. Comment what historical tactic still works today. Khalid ibn al-Walid at Walaja demonstrated principle that remains true 1,400 years later. Superior tactics executed with perfect timing can defeat superior numbers and equipment. He faced 30,000 professional imperial soldiers with 15,000 warriors. won through understanding enemy doctrine better than enemy understood his, creating situations where enemy strengths became weaknesses. Patience to wait until psychological point of no return. Hidden reserves appearing at perfect moment. Combined arms coordination. The Persian Empire never recovered psychologically from Walaja. Not because they lost 30,000 soldiers. Empires can replace soldiers. Because they lost certainty. Lost belief that their system guaranteed victory. Lost confidence in battlefield itself. Every subsequent Persian army fought with Walaja's shadow. That hesitation was cumulative poison. Arab forces advanced through Mesopotamia, encountering Persian armies that hesitated at critical moments, checked flanks obsessively, avoided commitment until too late. Fear is virus spreads through armies faster than orders. Within decade, Sassanid, Persian Empire collapsed, not because of Walaja alone, but Walaja was moment empire realized it could be defeated. Realized desert armies weren't inferior. Realized doctrine wasn't invincible. Psychological blow spread through entire military establishment, weakened resistance, facilitated Arab conquest of Persian territories. This is true legacy of Walaja. Not bodies on field, not banners captured, not ground taken. Moment an empire's military soul was wounded fatally. Moment certainty died. Moment professional army learned tactics matter more than tradition. Modern militaries study Walaja because principles are timeless. Don't fight enemy strength head-on. Study their doctrine. Predict responses. Exploit predictability. Use terrain to hide intentions. Time attacks for maximum psychological impact. Coordinate all elements perfectly. Maintain discipline in victory. Technology changes. Human factors don't. Persian soldiers 633 AD experienced same fear Ukrainian soldiers feel when drones appear overhead, or Russian soldiers feel when encircled. Confusion when attacked from unexpected direction. Panic when retreat path blocked. Same psychology, different weapons. Khalid ibn al-Walid died 642 AD, 9 years after Walaja. Never lost a battle in entire military career. Fought over 100 engagements. Against superior numbers repeatedly. Against professional armies. Against Byzantine Empire, Persian Empire, tribal confederations. Undefeated. Not because he had better soldiers or equipment. Because he understood warfare at level most commanders never reach. Understood that battles are decided in enemy commander's mind before first blow struck. That victory goes to whoever controls timing of commitment. That forcing enemy to move exactly where you want them is more important than moving yourself. That patience is weapon as deadly as cavalry charge. His legacy. Every military that studies maneuver warfare studies Khalid. German officers pre-World War II studied his campaigns. Israeli armor doctrine incorporates principles. U.S. Marine Corps maneuver warfare emphasis draws on historical examples, including Khalid's battles. Russian deep operations theory movement and encirclement. These aren't coincidences. These are professionals recognizing genius when they see it. Walaja wasn't luck, wasn't accident, wasn't improvisation. Was carefully engineered tactical masterpiece executed with surgical precision. Every element planned: terrain selection, force positioning, timing, psychological manipulation, exploitation. Modern equivalent: Israeli Six-Day War, 1,967 preemptive airstrikes destroyed Arab air forces on ground. Changed war before ground fighting. Desert Storm, 1,991. Air campaign shaped battlefield. Ground campaign was exploitation. Ukrainian Kharkiv, 2022. Deception plus maneuver plus timing equals operational success. Principles unchanged since Khalid understand enemy. Create conditions favoring you. Time action perfectly. Exploit success ruthlessly. If you want to carry piece of this history with you, Maproom Battles merch shop is live. Link in description. Every purchase supports research that goes into scripts like this. Now back to why Walaja matters today. Because we're living in an era where military technology advancing rapidly: drones, AI, cyber weapons, hypersonics. Easy to think, warfare fundamentally changed. Hasn't. Technology is delivery mechanism. Principles are constant. Khalid didn't need drones to achieve reconnaissance advantage, used terrain. Didn't need encrypted communications to coordinate forces, used clear plan and disciplined execution. Didn't need precision weapons, had precisely timed maneuver. Technology makes execution easier. Doesn't change underlying principles. Walaja teaches: study enemy until you understand them better than they understand themselves. Engineer situations where their doctrine works against them. Wait for perfect timing, even when pressure builds to act. Coordinate all elements seamlessly. Maintain discipline, especially in victory. These principles: 1 at Walaja, 633 AD. 1 at Cani, 216 BC. 1 at Austerlitz, 1805. 1 at Inchon, 1950. Win in Ukraine today. Because human factors don't change. Psychology of soldier under fire hasn't changed in 3,000 years. Fear when attacked from unexpected direction. Panic when surrounded. Confusion when orders contradictory. Cohesion breakdown under pressure. Khalid understood this. Used it as weapon. Created conditions where Persian psychology worked against them. Controlled retreat triggered Persian aggression. Hidden cavalry created shock. Perfect timing made panic, spread faster than control could restore order. Physical destruction followed psychological destruction. This is mastery, winning in enemy's mind before winning on ground. When you think about Walaja, that sun-scorched plain near Euphrates, May 633 AD, remember 30,000 Persian professionals walked onto battlefield believing victory guaranteed. 15,000 Arabs stood facing them, with commander who had already won battle in his mind. By sunset, Persian army erased. Not defeated, erased. And more importantly, Persian confidence shattered. Sassanid Empire's psychological spine broken. Remaining battles formality. Empire was dead from Walaja forward. Just didn't know it yet. That's power of perfect tactical execution combined with strategic vision. That's legacy of Khalid ibn al-Walid. That's why 1,400 years later, we study his battles. Not for nostalgia, For principles. Because warfare changes. War doesn't. Technology evolves. Psychology doesn't. Tactics adapt. Principles endure. Walaja teaches control space. Control timing. Force enemy to commit first. Punish commitment with violence at perfect moment. Maintain discipline throughout. Learn these lessons or repeat Persia's mistakes. Choice is yours. Thanks for walking through this tactical masterpiece with us. Remember, doctrine that can't adapt is suicide. Overconfidence kills armies. Timing matters more than strength. And greatest victories happen when enemy defeats themselves by following doctrine you've engineered to destroy them. See you in the next battle.